an upgrade from the Dead Gale version that Chris Piccola played back in the day. Liliana the Veil, slightly an upgrade to Hypnotic Spectre.
One could argue. One could argue. Also, a couple copies of Vindicate and Zealous Persecution here from Segal, but he is just playing a black-white, kind of mid-rangey, aggressive, what have you deck, and he's going to play a Marsh Flats, and we are underway here in round number 12 of 16 of our Season 1 Invitational here in Charlotte. Mondello is going to play a Verdant Catacombs. He's going to play a Wirewood Symbiote. We'll see what land he's going to search out. So two decks that you don't really see a ton of in Legacy. Elves probably the more popular of the two, but no blue cards for once.
Yeah, and Michael's going to be under a lot of pressure because Elves is really resilient to kind of one-for-one removal. So cards like Gatekeeper, Liliana the Veil, not going to be very good against Elves. He has 2 copies of Zealous Persecution in his deck, which could be good, but probably the signature card of Elves, Wirewood Symbiote, that is in play for Jake, and that really is the card that makes it very difficult for kind of removal to be effective. Even if you do cast a Zealous Persecution against Jake, he could technically like bounce a bunch of elves to his hand, and you're not even going to get that much advantage out of it.
Persecution is actually a card that Segal does have in his hand right now, so he's going to start by casting a Stoneforge Mystic. Going to go get Umezawa's Jite, another fine weapon against the Elvish Menace before passing the turn back. Mondello's going to untap that Bayou, and we'll see how he wants to move forward here on his second turn of the game. We speak of Zealous Persecution and just how good that card is against elves. It's actually primarily in Segal's deck to deal with True Name Nemesis, but it doesn't hurt that it has other applications as well.
Yeah, so Michael's got a pretty good start against the elf deck. He has that Persecution you mentioned. He also is able to find a Jite, which is very difficult for the elf deck to deal with at times. Wirewood Symbiote is, again, one of the ways you can kind of deal with a Jite by like blocking and then bouncing so that before the card can get any counters. But with that Zealous Persecution, that means that that Wirewood Symbiote is not long for this world.
Strange play there by Mondello. He just played a Windswept Heath and just passed the turn back. He did have some elves that he could play, but he chose not to. And now it looks like Segal is going to cast a Zealous Persecution here once the Dryad Arbor is fetched. So a little 2-for-1 action, but more importantly, it's actually also going to play the role of Stone Rain here. So really, really nice play.
Yeah, this is kind of a nightmare situation for Jake because not only does he lose 2 creatures, but he also has to face down a Jite activation next turn potentially.
Yeah, the plan there for Jake was to get the Dryad Arbor, cast a Glimpse, and just go crazy from there, as he did have 2 copies of Heritage Root in his hand. Now, because of a main deck, Zealous Persecution, which I'm sure he was a little bit surprised about, makes everything a little more difficult. As Seagal's going to untap, he's going to take a draw, and if he does have a 4th land, he can play and equip the Jite all in one turn.
He also has Liliana in his hand too, so he can actually just decide to cast Liliana and start uptaking it if he wants to, which it looks like he is going to do because he doesn't have a 4th mana, so Jite won't get out in line this turn anyway. So it looks like he's just going to play the Liliana and discard a Lingering Soul. It's pretty good discard.
Eliminate all that value.
Yeah, so Michael firmly in the driver's seat here. Jake can sack that Misty Rainforest to get a second Dryad Arbor if he chooses, but again, doesn't really have a lot of action right now. And even though he has that Glimpse in his hand, he doesn't have that much mana to get too much value out of it.
You see the Bayou in play there for Segal, and the reason for that is because he does want to be able to activate the green half of Deathrite Shaman, a card that he does have 4 copies of. So that's exactly what that is there for. He also has a couple of Locks and On-Smiters in the sideboard, which he can hard cast or, of course, discard to a Liliana the Veil trigger from the opponent and put into play the free 4/4. We see Mondello sacrificing Misty Rainforest to go get that second Dryad Arbor that you did mention, and we'll see if he can actually kind of put together a pretty nice turn here.
Yeah, if Michael draws a 4th land, it's going to be really tough for Jake to win because he'll not only be able to cast Jite and equip it, but he still has that Liliana activation. So he's putting pressure both on Jake's hand and his board.
Misty Rainforest, the draw here for Mondello. Again, he was trying to set up a big Glimpse turn a few turns ago. Wasn't able to do that. Now it just might be a little bit of a value Glimpse, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So Glimpse into Nature is cast. Dryad Arbor is going to tap for a green. This is a Heritage Root that will draw a card. A Gaia's Cradle is rather timely.
Yeah, I was going to say that is the perfect card for him to draw there because it generates him now 2 mana. So now he can cast a second Heritage Root if he draws another 1 mana elf. Unfortunately, he draws no other elves, and I think his hand is just lands. So yeah, he's forced to stop right there.
Vindicate the draw here for Segal. Also, still no 4th land here, but Jake trying to cobble together a little something here.
So yeah, this is going to be interesting here. Again, he doesn't have mana to both activate, cast Jite, and activate or equip, but he looks like he's just going to force Jake to sacrifice a creature, and the Vindicate might go after one of the other elves or the Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, it really just depends on what Mondello's going to sacrifice here. It looks like he's going to sacrifice a Heritage Druid again because he doesn't have any other elves in his hand. Those Heritage Druids really aren't that good, so he's going to lose one. Liliana Veil is actually going to come in and replace itself. It's going to take down as well.
So yes, Heritage Druid, it looks like it's going to get sacked again. So Jake is just left with lands in play. One of them is a Dryad Arbor. Unfortunately, because of the Stoneforge Mystic, Jake can't attack Liliana with the Dryad Arbor because Stoneforge Mystic is ready to block.
He had the option between Vindicating or just playing another Liliana. How do you feel about the choice to play another Liliana as opposed to the Vindicate?
Well, I kind of like it just because it gives him the option to Vindicate a Gaia's Cradle if he wants to.
Okay.
Because Gaia's Cradle can be a little explosive. So either way, you're going to cast a 3-mana spell this turn. Might as well just get a little more value.
Mondello's draw that turn was a copy of Natural Order. Again, we know his land is hands, along with a couple of copies of Gaia's Cradle, and then that singleton Natural Order. Of course, the goal with this deck is to Natural Order up the old Craterhoof Behemoth and get the job done. I don't know if he has any spice in his deck like a Progenitus or a Whirlspine Worm.
Yeah, basically his only option is to just go after a Craterhoof Behemoth here. It will allow him to kill the Liliana this turn, but he doesn't really have any other option. It's basically go for a Craterhoof Behemoth, kill your Liliana, and hope that my 5/5 can go all the way. Obviously, we know that won't because of the Vindicate. But either way, I think he doesn't have really that many other options. He can go for an Elvish Visionary.
Yeah, that was
Symbiote.
That was the card I was going to bring up. It's just getting a Visionary, maybe using it, trying to cantrip and maybe a little runner or something like that. Because this is a rather unexciting play. I think you can argue.
Yes, it's not great, but again, at least he's able to kill Liliana, and you force Michael to have an answer to a 5/5. So it's not the worst play. Obviously, it's not ideal for his situation, though.
Mondello's actually going to come to the face, going to leave Liliana out there since it's at 1. It can't threaten the sacrifice effect. Segal's going to draw a copy of him to Torak here. And he's going to stare at that Vindicate, and we'll see if he's going to use it this turn or not. He's actually just going to go hemming, basically saying, I'm not too scared right now of that Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yeah, by casting him, and now he's going to uptick Liliana, he's actually going to empty Jake's hand. And then, I think he's saying, don't worry about rolling because I'm going to make you discard anything anyway. So now, the thing is, the Craterhoof Behemoth no longer has Trample because the Trample only happens when it comes into play. So he can just chump block with Stoneforge Mystic and then use Liliana's ability to sacrifice.
And I got a feeling that's what we're going to see, which there is the chump block from the Stoneforge Mystic. There's a land for Mondello. That's a Savannah. And Segal's probably just going to use this Liliana, take care of the Craterhoof Behemoth. The follow-up play is going to be the GT finally. And he's Flash Lingering Souls. You're liking this, aren't you?
I like it. Look at that. Finally, 4 mana.
Don't need no islands here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jake has no cards in his hand, no creatures in play. Really just... Michael was able to kind of totally decimate his entire board position.
I mean, his resources have just been exhausted.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the goal of the Dead Guy Ale deck. And here's a Thought Seize just to make sure the coast is clear. Show you a Gaia's Cradle. That'll be the 4th one of the game. Equip the Jite. In comes Jerry Thompson yielding a weapon, and one of him without. 2 damage is going to come across, but more importantly, the Jite is going to have 2 counters on it now, and it's almost impossible for Elves to get out of this situation.
So here we see Elvish Visionary, Green Sun Zenith. So there's a start, you know. You can Green Sun Zenith for 1 to get Elvish Vision, Wirewood Symbiote. But again, active Jite, very, very difficult for Elves to beat.
Is there Viridian Shaman in the main deck of the Elves deck? I'm not too sure if he has one.
There is not. He does not have one main.
And that's not too surprising because, I mean, not a lot of these decks actually play one main. Sometimes we see that happen when the equipment is super heavy in the format, but with the Invitational, how diverse the metagame can be, moving the Shaman to the sideboard is definitely one option players use, or just going without one at all because they just feel they can't beat equipment, period, and just hope it doesn't show up.
Yeah, so in response to the Green Sun Zenith, Michael just kills the Visionary right away, doesn't want to have to worry about any crazy Wirewood Symbiote shenanigans. So Jake is just forced to get a Nettle Sentinel. Now the flying tokens are coming through. Jite is going to immediately kill Nettle Sentinel, and now we might see, it looks like we're going to see Dark Confidant, but he still has that Liliana as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a reason to expose Liliana. He knows what's in Mondello's hand. He knows it's a Gaia's Cradle, so the next threat that Mondello plays will probably just die to Liliana. As Elvish Visionary is going to come in here and draw a card. Draws a copy of Nettle Sentinel, so very reminiscent of what we just saw here.
Yeah, so let's see. Dark Confidant reveals a land. and he draws for the card turn. Now we're probably just going to see kill your Visionary, attack, kill your Nettle Sentinel, Liliana, discard your last card, and the good old lockdown.
Yeah, it's almost close to a flawless victory as GT's going to tick up. There you go. It's going to use all of the counters to take care of the stuff. There's the Liliana. Get that card out of your hand, as you did mention. Segal is more than happy to discard that Bloodstained Mire. He's going for close to a flawless victory here.
And it was really, obviously Jite's playing a huge role here. But being able to cast Zealous Persecution and 2-for-1 Jake early on, that was really the key for the game here.
The thing here for Mondello, too, is because he doesn't have access to the deck list like we do, so we know that Segal is playing 2 copies of Zealous Persecution. But if you're Mondello, when you're playing the game after sideboard, you have no idea how many Zealous Persecutions your opponent has access to. I'm sure he was surprised to see the first one in game 1.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a scary thing that when he's trying to go off or just create a board position or set up a glimpse kill, that he knows that if opponent has 2 mana, he has to worry about Zealous Persecution the entire time. Yes, Dark Confidant does turn over another land. Liliana's going to tick up and discard that scrub land. And now Segal is just going to work his way towards closing out this game here. He's going to attack with the Flyers in the air, hold the Confidant back. No interest in trading with Elvish Visionary here.
Yep, he still has the second copy of Liliana along with that Vindicate in his hand. Really no need to cast anything.
Just going to fire away, get this off the board right now. You see killing main face, so the guy's Cradle does not provide any mana.
Yeah, he might be thinking about vindicating a Bayou here just in case Jake has main deck Abrupt Decay, but really doesn't need to do anything.
Mondello going to draw his card. We'll see if he's found anything to use. He has not, so we'll pass the turn back. Bob going to turn it over on Marsh Flats. The draw step for the turn will be another copy of him to Torak. Liliana is going to tick up. Marsh Flats will go to the grave, as will a natural order that Mondello could not cast. And this go around, we'll see Dark Confidant coming to the red zone along with those Spirit tokens. A little pump there on the one equipped with the GT, so an attack for 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 more charge counters on the GT. And I think in just a moment, my friend will be looking at sideboards here. Now he's going to fire. You know what? Get that Vindicate. Give me that too. So, Michael Segal is going to win game number 1 here over Jake Mondello. Dead Guy Ale up a game over Combo Elves. I have, actually, you have Mondello's sideboard in front of you. So, fire away on what he can do to fix things here.
Yeah, well, he's in a tough spot because he already saw Zealous Persecution main. So that means he's likely going to see even more copies after board. Not to mention that a deck like Dead Guy Ale could also have a card like Perish. So for Jake, if you're Jake, I think you have to kind of assume the way I'm going to win this match is by natural ordering for one of my fatties. So Progenitus is obviously a pretty good fatty. Unfortunately, Michael does have cards like Liliana the Veil, not to mention Gatekeeper of Malachor. So he does have ways to kind of force Jake to sack it. Jake has plenty of creatures, but that doesn't. Because of those cards, it does give Michael outs to Progenitus. A real good card, though, is World Spine Worm.
Yeah.
He has World Spine Worm in his sideboard. World Spine Worm is great against removal-heavy decks because even if they are able to deal with the giant creature, you get 3 other slightly less giant creatures as a response. So definitely see him bringing in the 4th natural order, the World Spine Worm, and the Progenitus. I also kind of like maybe Scavenging Ooze coming in because then, again, it is another card that can kind of grow pretty big and kind of can go after Lingering Souls as well. And Abrupt Decay, I also think you're going to bring in the Abrupt Decays just because you want a way to deal with Umezawa Jite. If I'm Jake, I just don't think I'm going to be able to combo kill him.
Okay.
So I'm just going to try to grind him out with a Glimpse of Nature here and there, and then try to win with either a natural order or just kind of overwhelm him with my card advantage through Wirewood Symbiote and Elvish Visionary.
On Segal's side, he has 2 copies of Phyrexian Revoker, 2 Ethersworn Canonist, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 copies of Humility, 2 Loxodon Spiders, 2 Lifebane Zombies, a Disenchanted Duress, and a Disfigure. Disfigure is the easiest one to board in here. I actually kind of like Lifebane Zombie, or at least the thought of it, but it is a 3-mana spell, so it's a little slow, but at the same time, he does have Deathrite Shaman in his deck, so it's definitely plausible that he can cast it on turn number 2. Duress is okay because the Elves deck actually does have spells in natural order, Green Sun Zenith, and Glimpse, so I think that's a viable option to bring in, even though it is just a one-of. Ethersworn Canonist can come in, and if he thinks that Mondello is still trying to combo after board, which is something you're not advocating. And outside of that, I mean, Humility is whatever. It does make GT much better. Revoker is kind of the same camp as whatever. But I think the easy options are the the Disfigure, and then the Lifebane Zombies.
Well, the Revoker could actually shut down the Symbiote and the Kyrian Ranger, so I wouldn't be surprised if I saw him bringing in the Revokers. But yeah, it's really, Lifebane Zombie might be a little too slow, but I like the Disfigure. Duress is obviously pretty good because you have to imagine Michael probably knows elves well enough to know that they're probably just going to try to natural order kill you pretty quickly. So duress probably comes in to stop that. Beyond that, though, I think Ethersworn and Voker are probably there to kind of slow them down a little bit. And Canonus in particular, if the elf deck can't play multiple spells in one turn, they're a lot weaker, particularly because it kind of slows down that visionary engine.
Yeah, the big question is, there's a lot of options that Segal can board in. We're talking in between, 5 to 8 cards here. The question is what to sideboard out. I think Vindicate's actually an easy one to cut. It's just a very expensive removal spell in this matchup. How much discard do you want to leave in? He's got 4 Thoughtseizes, 3 Hymns, and the potential for a Duress to come in. Liliana also providing a dual role of discard and removal. Gatekeeper of Malakir, is it actually going to catch the creature that you want it to catch? But at the same time, you know that Mondello probably has access to Progenitus in his sideboard, as most elves do, so you want to make sure that you give yourself enough outs to that situation. Lingering Souls is Lingering Souls. It's a great magic card. It's good against elves, so you probably want to leave all of those in too. Just a lot of options here for Michael Segal on what to board in and out of his deck.
Yeah, the cool thing about this deck is that it has, a lot of discard, which is obviously good against combo, but it also has a fair amount of removal. So, Vindicate, Swords to Plowshare, Liliana the Veil, Gatekeeper, and Malakir. It has a lot more removal than most Legacy decks have. If you look at most Legacy decks, they're very streamlined. They'll have maybe 4 copies of Swords to Plowshare and then 1 or a few other removal spells, or maybe just 4 copies of Lightning Bolt and that's it. Maybe 1 Fork Bolt. But most Legacy decks, they don't have that much removal. So this deck is very interesting because it kind of plays a lot of discard to contend with the unfair decks like Combo, but then in order to beat some of the fair decks like Death and Taxes or Goblins, it plays a lot of removal spells. Yeah. So very interesting strategy here. And then it kind of has still that Stoneforge package along with Dark Confidant to kind of gain card advantage that way. Yeah,
very removal dense deck here by Segal. It's obviously working quite well for him this week and sitting at 9-2, looking to get out of this match alive, move on in 10-2 before we move towards the standard portion of our event. Of course, after we work our way through these last handful of rounds of Invitational, we'll be talking and covering our standard open as well that had about 570 players. So 10 or 11 rounds of fun back there later this evening. So we're going to have a lot more standard Magic. This is our last round of Legacy for the day. But if you're a Legacy fan, that's what tomorrow's for, as our elimination rounds of the Invitational will be Legacy, as well as the Legacy Open on the back end of tomorrow.
Yeah, if you like Standard or you like Legacy, there is plenty of Magic left to play for you.
7 cards apiece here for both players. Again, Jake Mondello will be on the play this game, as he was decimated by Numazawa and Zealous Persecution in game number 1. Take a look at an opener here. It looks like his only land might be a Gaia's Cradle. Not sure.
Interesting hand for Michael here. Looks like you boarded into Humility.
Okay.
So if that, it's 4 mana, so it's going to take a while to resolve. But if it does resolve, it makes all those elves basically just vanilla creatures, vanilla 1/1s.
And I like the use of Humility if you can get it in play against elves. Like some of the sideboard plans that Mondello is going to try to employ, you see him taking a mulligan down to 6 here. We talk about Worldspine Warrior and Progenitus, how powerful those cards are. Well, Humility makes those cards pretty poor. And with how much removal Segal has in his deck, all he needs to do is just kill some creatures, buy some time, get Humility into play, and then Umezawa's Jite and or Batterskull can mop things up, and Lingering Souls is obviously going to do a fantastic job of trading with those 1/1 creatures. Because of Humility.
Yeah, and not only that, but we also mentioned how one of the ways Jay can win is by just natural ordering for a giant creature. Well, Humility is a great answer to even a card like Worldspine Worm.
Yep.
Because it actually makes all those creatures kind of worthless. Again, 4 mana is a lot. And Michael, we saw him have struggled to get to 4 mana in the first game, so it's not necessarily going to win him the game, but pretty interesting sideboard option there for him.
Verdant Catacomb is going to search for a land. Green Sun's it's going to be for 0 to go get a Dryad Arbor. So Mondello's going to shortcut this and do this all at once. End up at 19 at the end of the turn. And we'll see what land he wants to search for, if it'll be Basic Forest or a Bayou. And it will be a Bayou. Segal just playing a copy of Marsh Flats. We'll see if he has anything he wants to do, as he does have that Duress in his hand here.
Yeah, and Jake does have that natural order, so he's threatening a turn 3 natural order.
Segal is going to sacrifice Marsh Flats, so he's going to go down to 19 as well. He's going to go get a Scrub land, and it looks like it might be time to fire off the old discard spell.
Yeah, so like we said, he's going to bring, we thought he might bring in Duress to stop some of the natural order shenanigans, and that's exactly what we're going to see here.
And just a 1 of in the sideboard here of Segal. And it looks like he may want to fire that off. He's going to go with Swords of Plowshares, play the Stone Rain play here, and get the Dryad Arbor off the table, which is certainly a fine play as well.
Yeah, so now Jake is just left with a Elvish Visionary in his hand, plus that natural order that we mentioned.
Oh, there's Windswept Heath picked up there for Mondello before passing back. Seagal's going to play a Wasteland. He's going to fire off a Duress. There goes the natural order. You see Mondello just got a bunch of lands there. Windswept Heath, the Misty Rainforest, and a Gaia's Cradle. So I'd be surprised if Segal wants to fire off this Wasteland here.
Yeah, he has plenty of mana. You probably go after the Gaia's Cradle or another potential Dryad Arbor.
Mondello's going to untap. He's going to take a draw. Picks up a Nettle Sentinel. Going to start by attacking from 1 here with Elvish Visionary. Seagal's going to go down to 18.
So Michael does have a lot of spells in his hand, but it doesn't look like he has a lot of mana left. So yeah, that Wasteland not really going to be going anywhere.
There's a Deathrite Shaman off the top, and he's just going to pass the turn back. So you said it doesn't look like he has a lot of mana, and you were right about that. The Windswept Heath going to get sacrificed. Mondello's going to go down to 18. We'll see if he's going to actually search up that second Dryad Arbor or just get another land.
Yeah, so, and Jake really needs either a Green Sun Zenith or another natural order. Even a Wirewood Symbiote would be pretty good here. But yeah, he's going to sack land to get a Dryad Arbor.
Yeah, a lot of big draws here, actually. Green Sun Zenith wouldn't be so bad.
Because he's already got the Elvish Visionary in play. So as long as he can get something to kind of start cranking out the advantage, Michael does have that humility in his hand, and he currently has 2 lands plus a Deathrite Shaman.
There's another Visionary. So Mondello's going to start by casting this. Time to draw a card.
Natural order for the win?
Well, hey, Wirewood Symbiote's not bad.
Wirewood Symbiote is not bad. So Wirewood Symbiote is going to get drawn with Gaia's Cradle, generates 4 mana. So now we're going to see Wirewood Symbiote come down.
Down to 3. Going to add a mana here. Going to pick this up, untap this. Down to 2. Draw a card. Another copy.
There's a natural order.
Wow.
I don't think he has enough mana to actually cast it this turn though. But if he can dodge a land from Michael so that humility doesn't come down. Oh, but Michael has the Thoughtseize anyway.
The question is, does he cast it this turn? I mean, he's also got a Vindicate to play. He's a little bottlenecked on mana. There's some interest in firing off a Wasteland to take care of that Gaia's Cradle. That's providing a huge advantage. So, going to fire in here. Looks like with Nettle Sentinel, his Deathrite Shaman cannot block appropriately. Seagal's going to go down to 16. Mondello's going to pass the turn back and truly hope that a land or discard spell does not come off here.
So I think you have to Thoughtseize here, given what just happened. Jake still has outs because Michael bricked on a land. He still has outs, thankfully, because humility didn't come down. And again, he still has a Visionary Wirewood Symbiote combo in play.
It looks like we're going Vindicating here, Osip. His 3 mana is being tapped. Deathrite Shaman's going to remove something. There goes the Wirewood Symbiote.
So fortunate for Jake there. It looks like Natural Order should be able to win him the game on his turn.
Yeah, and I'm not too surprised that Michael didn't cast Thoughtseize there. I mean, there's a draw engine that can just continue to keep taking place, and it's just tough to want to cast a Thoughtseize, I feel like, in that situation where you can maximize your mana with Deathrite Shaman and everything else. It honestly feels like a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, so Jake draws an Elvish Visionary, Wirewood Symbiote, and now you can just cast Natural Order, get a Crater of Behemoth.
Seagal knows exactly where this is going. Crater of Behemoth would come into play. The trigger would make all of those creatures huge. They all get to attack, and that's going to do it. So Jake Mondello is going to win in game number 2, and we are even up here between Elves and Dead Guy Ale.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I guess you can't really Thoughtseize there, just given that there's a card drawing engine in play already.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I mean, we're obviously looking at the natural order in Mondello's hand, saying, yeah, you just totally Thoughtseize. What are you thinking about? But at the same time, Seagal is really stuck, and he's got a bunch of 3-mana spells in his hand between Liliana's and a Vindicate. He just wants to get those in play as best he can, and unfortunately, he was unable to get the job done there. So we'll play a third one here between these two players that are sitting at 9-2 and looking to make the top 8 of our Season 1 Invitational.
And you kind of saw in that game, it's really tough for Dead Guy L to win if it's not able to get one of those sweeper effects like a Zealous Persecution, or it's not able to get a Jeté online going. His deck is pretty clunky. I mean, a lot of 3-mana, a lot of 3-mana spells. He bores in that humility as well. So on the draw in particular, can be very clunky against Elves, especially if he doesn't get a Deathrite Shaman on play in turn 1.
I think clunky is actually just the best word to use because there are a lot of 3-mana spells and you're using a lot of your mana every single turn of the game. So the situation that we saw there, especially when you want to be wastelanding people too, isn't out of the ordinary, I'm sure, for Seagal when he's playing this Dead Guy Ale deck.
Yeah, like Jake, the Elf deck looks just like light years ahead when you look at it in that game in particular, because Mike's hand was basically a bunch of 3-mana spells. He could only cast basically one spell a turn. Meanwhile, on Jake's side of the board, you had a bunch of creatures in play. You had one land that tapped for like 5 mana.
Yeah.
You're able to cast multiple spells in a turn. You have like this recurring engine in play. So his deck looks like just a well-oiled machine in that game. Whereas in game 1, Michael was able to capitalize on some sweeper effects and Umazao Jete. So Michael will be on the play in game 3, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not he can kind of gain some sort of momentum there by getting either a Deathrite Shaman to play early or getting an Jete online pretty active.
Let's not forget that game either. Mondello, I believe, took a mulligan. You know, he got off to a slow start. Discard spell came firing his way. Swords of Plowshares took care of the Dryad Arbor, and his deck still just, hummed along beautifully.
Yeah, that's the thing. It can handle 1-for-1 removal pretty well simply because of Wirewood Symbiote, Elvish Visionary. And you have so many redundant ways to find those cards. So you do have that backdoor way to kind of randomly just win with Natural Order sometimes. But you also have a lot of ways to kind of cast Elvish Visionary, cast Wirewood Symbiote, and find those cards with Green Sun Zenith.
So I got a thought process question for you. You're going into game 3. This is the back end of the legacy portion. Last round before you move into the standard. And obviously, when you're 9-2 in a tournament, these rounds are obviously pretty crucial. So, what's your mindset right now where game 3 kind of for it all before you move back to standard and put your legacy deck away for the weekend, and knowing that going into the standard portion at 10-2 is very different from 9-3?
Yeah, you can't really think about it that way. I think whenever you're trying to top 8 a tournament, you don't really think about the end result. You just kind of try to think about each round and just winning that round. I mean, any tournament that I play in, especially when you kind of start feeling, you kind of get that sense like, oh wow, I'm kind of on a run here. You kind of have to control yourself, control your emotions, calm yourself down, because once you start thinking too far ahead, I think bad things start happening. It's easier to go on tilt. It's easier to let any loss kind of affect you more. So I think if you're Jake or Michael, you got to just think about, I have to just try to win this game. Don't think about what my record is. What do I need to top 8? Just think you have to win. Just try to win every game. Take it one at a time. And I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say. You hear people say it all the time, but it's the truth. You can't really focus on what your record is or what you need to top 8. You just need to try to keep winning each round, because the more focus or attention you place on the future, the less focus or attention you're putting on the game at hand.
We'll see which player is going to move into the standard portion here at 10-2. Picking up a 3rd loss isn't the end of the world, as you can top 8 our invitational here with, sometimes we've seen it with 4 losses. But, of course, you did mention it's just kind of a one game, one match at a time type thing here, even though it is a crucial one for both of these players.
Yeah, I think either player, regardless of the result, has to be, happy with their standings as of right now. You have 4 rounds left. It's basically a 4-round tournament. All you got to do is 3-1, basically. But again, you can't think of it that way.
Yeah.
It's hard not to get excited. But
it is difficult, as Segal's going to sacrifice this Marsh Flats. We'll see what land he's going to search out. It is going to be a scrub land. A Quirion Ranger here from Mondello off of Sandvana. That's going to bite the dust. Looks like Swords of Plowshare is going to be cast here by Segal.
And I think I might have seen a Lifebane Zombie in Michael's in his main deck while he was shuffling. So looks like he might have boarded that in. Maybe thinks he's a little bit better on the play.
Yeah. There's your swords, taking care of the Quirion Ranger. Seagull's going to untap. He'll take a draw. It's a copy of Bloodstained Mire. He's going to play a different Bloodstained Mire. Pass the turn back. Mondello will draw a Misty Rainforest.
I can't see exactly what's in Michael's hand, but it doesn't look that strong. I think he has it looks like he might have kept a couple of plows and a Lingering Souls, but beyond that, it's just a Batter Skull.
Yeah, he's got a Batter Skull hanging out over there too, but his hand does not look particularly great right now, as there's just a Misty Rainforest and passing the turn back. So Seagull's going to get a turn of reprieve here. Now, of course, that Misty can turn into a Dryad Arbor, but all things being honest, a pretty honest turn there from Mondello.
And Jake does have another Wirewood Symbiote in his hand, but he chose not to play this turn because he wants to get a little value out of it. No reason to expose it to a removal spell just yet. Looks like he might have a Green Sun Zenith in his hand as well, so he can search out a Visionary first. And then kind of force Michael's hand as to either killing the Visionary in response to a Wirewood Symbiote or just letting it resolve. And either way, you're going to get a little advantage out of that.
Seagull going to sacrifice the Bloodstained Mire at the end of Mondello's turn. Going to go down to 18 as he does get a scrub land. Draws a Deathrite Shaman, figuring out what land he wants to play, giving a little bit of information away there, playing the Bloodstained Mire before, he gripped the scrub land, was going to play it, chose not to. Once you get the fetch land in play, plays a Deathrite Shaman, passes the turn back to Mondello, who's going to sacrifice that Misty Rainforest, go down to 20, go get a Dried Arbor, and that's going to get Swords to Plowshare immediately.
Yeah, and you can ask, well, if he has Lingering Souls in his hand, why didn't he just maximize his mana and cast Lingering Souls that turn? Well, he wanted to have mana up for Swords to Plowshares in case he needed to break up any kind of combo. So you always hear people talk about maximize your mana. Well, sometimes it's not right. Sometimes you kind of need to make sure you have an answer to a potential combo.
Yeah, and by playing Deathrite Shaman this turn too, you see Segal's going to sacrifice Bloodstained Mire, go down to 17, probably go get another scrub land. But by playing Deathrite Shaman here, he has the ability to play Batterskull the next turn.
Yeah, he can actually cast Batterskull next turn because he does have a 4th land in his hand. So the 4 lands plus Deathrite Shaman activation will allow Batterskull to come into play. And he doesn't really have any other option. He has no more removal spells left in his hand, and he just has that Lingering Souls. So, yeah, with no other better options, we're probably going to see a Batterskull come into play next turn.
And you said that the Elves deck that Mondello is playing is quite good against 1-for-1 removal, and that's what Segal's done so far this game. A Swords here, a Swords there. Now he wants to get his clock on the table and hope that Mondello cannot cobble together anything from his Elves deck. But Mondello's sitting at 21 life. He's got plenty of time.
Yeah. He's got plenty of time. I don't think he really is that afraid of a Batterskull. Obviously, the equipment that you're afraid of is Jitte, not Batterskull. So, barring anything crazy drawn from Michael, I still think Jake is probably feeling okay, but he definitely needs to start getting some board presence here.
Again, Segal's hand right now, he does have a Scrub land, a Lingering Souls, and a Batterskull. We'll see what he does draw for the turn after Mondello does finish shuffling, and it will be a copy of Lifebane Zombie. That's a little bit interesting here.
So I would expect to see a Lifebane Zombie come into play now. Obviously, maximizing mana is great, but you'd rather have some sort of, you'd rather interact with Jake somehow. So Lifebane Zombie comes down, and now Jake is going to have to reveal that Wirewood Symbiote that's hanging out in his hand. And looks like that's, at very least, that's going to go away.
I don't think he wants to show him the hand. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
He has the Wirewood Symbiote, a Crater of Behemoth, a World Spine Worm, a Glimpse into Nature, and a Gaia's Cradle and Mystery Rainforest. That hand is yucky.
Yeah, that's a beating right there. He's going to lose the Wirewood Symbiote here, and he's left with just 2 fatties. And although he has a Gaia's Cradle, it seems unlikely he's going to be able to generate enough creatures anytime soon. He does have that Glimpse, so if he gets a little lucky and runners, a couple of 1-drops, could be in good shape. But again,
has to. Well, okay, step one.
Step one. I think if you have to go Glimpse here.
Yeah, I think you have to go Glimpse. You know, play this. You'll have 2 creatures. Hope to hit another one.
Yeah, because if it's an elf, you can still bounce it.
Yep.
Oh,
that's a Finhorn elf. Play the Cradle. That taps for 2. There's a Finhorn elf. Got 1 green floating.
So you can bounce it, untap.
Untap the Dried Arbor. Play this. Draw another card. There's a Deathrite Shaman. Play that. And all of a sudden, we got ourselves a game again here, boys.
All of a sudden, we got ourselves a game. So pretty good shape there for Jake. Suddenly, it just goes to show you the resilience of this deck. So now that Gaia's Cradle can tap for 4 mana. It looks like he even drew an Ooze too, maybe.
He drew a Scravening Ooze. That was the last card that he did draw.
So Behemoth could actually get cast next turn, possibly 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, Behemoth can come down.
I was laughing at the Behemoth World Spine Worm hand. What do I know?
Yeah, he could actually play I think he might have another sack land in his hand. Looks like Michael does have a Liliana, but Liliana not going to be that effective right here.
Again, this is just more 1-for-1ing, and this is exactly what you mentioned, and that the Elves deck isn't really too scared of being 1-for-1 to the ground just because of the card drawing engines that it does have available. You just grind them down with Visionary plus Wirewood Symbiote, or you just play a Glimpse and draw a couple of cards, and that's exactly what happened here. Now, Mondello's going to have to sacrifice a creature. He's trying to figure out which is the best one to sacrifice. It looks like he's going towards the Dryad Arbor. Okay.
Yeah, I think he wants to make sure he has plenty of elves in play to kind of bounce with the Wirewood Symbiote.
Yeah.
Michael still doesn't have any other ways to kind of interact. He's going to attack with Lifebane Zombie.
Deathrite could trade.
Don't think you want to trade any elves here. 1, it's an elf, and 2, it's mana.
Yeah. 3, Cradle.
Yeah.
Yeah, provides a ton of mana. Windswept Heath to draw.
So even though he lost the Dryad Arbor, I still think he might have enough to actually cast a Behemoth. He has a Windswept Heath. He can sack that for an Arbor. That means Cradle would tap for 4, 5.
Out of Arbors.
Oh, okay.
One in the graveyard, and then 1 from the Swords.
Got it.
Out of Arbors, unfortunately. But he can still cast it, because Cradle's going to tap for 3. Savannah is 4. Finhorn Elf is 5. Deathrite Shaman is 6. Wirewood can untap an elf for 7. And then playing a land as aid.
It won't be lethal, though.
It will not be lethal.
It'll
correct.
just, although it will put a lot of pressure on Michael's life total. And then he's going to be, he's still far away from Worldspine Worm, but he could cast a Behemoth. And given the fact that it looks like he has a Scavenging Ooze too, so maybe he wants to cast Scavenging Ooze here and try to get a little value out of that first.
That presents a difficult to answer threat for Segal as well if he does play Scavenging Ooze while also buffing the life total. So Mondello's got some options. He's just trying to figure out which is the best one.
Yeah, because basically I think Mondello's thinking, is there a way for me to maybe slow roll the Behemoth and cast it next turn? So that way I can actually make it lethal. But if he does that, he exposes himself to Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
Or, God forbid, another Lifebane Zombie.
Yeah, that's true. You see he's very unsure of himself right now, doing a bunch of math. You saw him tap and untap the Cradle. Do I want to play Ooze? Do I just want to get Crater of Behemoth out there, get the trigger for 4 creatures? Maybe go after Liliana, maybe just go after your life total. Got some pretty good options here, but again, he needs to make a decision on what he wants to do for navigating this game because, let's say, for example, Segal were to draw it and it was Jite or Humility or Zell's Persecution, things change very quickly.
Yeah, so Jake he's just trying to do all the math here. He doesn't want to make a mistake. Ideally, he'd like to get the Ooze in play and the Behemoth, but I don't think he has enough mana for that. So that's basically what he's thinking about. But still, if you can get the Behemoth in play and attack with that and the Wirewood Symbiote, that's a lot of damage. And Deathrite Shaman could potentially finish things off for you.
So Bloodstained Mire is going to get removed. So now here's 2 green mana.
No, in response, the Deathrite Shaman on Michael's side.
Okay, remove the other one. Okay, sure. This is going to untap. Return this, untap that. This is going to push it up to, I believe, 5. Okay.
So yeah, it looks like he might be off here.
Down to 4. There's an Ooze. Okay, so this is just going to be an Ooze turn. 2 green mana floating.
So still pretty good for him. That means that basically next turn, the Ooze is going to be pretty good. And he's going to remove the... Looks like he's going to remove the Lingering Souls as well. Not sure if he removed it or not.
Oh, just going to grow that, pass it back.
Okay, so Michael still doesn't draw any way to interact with Jake's side of the board. So next turn, Jake's going to have plenty of options for him.
Discard Lingering Souls is what Seagal's going to do. He's going to play a Batter Skull here. Okay, so he discards Lingering Souls to Liliana. Mondello says, I'm going to have a response.
So yeah, he responds by removing the Lingering Souls because Michael passed priority back. But again, he wasn't flashing back the Lingering Souls this turn anyway. He's casting the Batter Skull.
There's a Swamp, put the Batter Skull into play, and Seagal's empty-handed. Already ticked up Liliana. So Mondello doesn't have anything to contend with besides what's on the board. Misty Rainforest is going to get sacrificed.
So this turn, he should have more than enough to cast a Behemoth. 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. Yeah, so he'll be able to cast the Behemoth from his hand, and he'll be able to attack with Scavenging Ooze, Wirewood Symbiote, and Deathrite Shaman at least.
That doesn't even include if he draws a Cradle or something else to really go crazy.
Yeah, so that's going to be that should be lethal.
Remember
Everything gets +5/+5.
Remember when Mondello had a Crater of Behemoth, a Worldspine Worm, and a Glimpse in his hand? That was it?
And we laughed at that hand?
Yeah.
Well, when you draw a Wirewood Symbiote and 2 other 1-drops off of a Glimpse, it's pretty good.
There's another Wirewood. He's probably going to play that pre-combat.
Yeah, because basically with the guy's Cradle in play, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's just a free spell, plus it gives another pump on the Crater of Behemoth. So he'll put that in the back row. The reason he's putting it with his land so that he knows that it is summoning sick. A bunch of mana is going to be tapped here. You see Seagal's going to start picking up his Furnace because he knows that hoof, there it is. Jake Mondello is going to win this match over Michael Segal, 2-1. Elves defeats Dead Guy Ale, and Mr. Mondello is 10-2, walking back in the standard portion.
Wow, he's got to feel pretty good about that because not only did he come from behind, but